From the World English Bible, the first book of Moses, commonly called Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty. Darkness was on the surface of the deep, and God's Spirit was hovering over the surface of the waters. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw the light and saw that it was good. God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. There was evening and there was morning, the first day. God said, "Let there be an expanse in the middle of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." God made the expanse and divided the waters which were under the expanse from the waters from which were above the expanse, and it was so. God called the expanse sky. There was evening and there was morning, a second day. God said, "Let the waters under the sky be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and gathered together the waters he called seas. God saw that it was good. God said, "Let the earth yield grass, herbs, yielding seeds, and fruit trees bearing fruit after their kind, with their seeds in it on the earth." And it was so. The earth yielded grasses, herbs yielding seed after their kind, and trees bearing fruit with their seeds in it after their kind. And God saw that it was good. There was evening and there was morning, a third day. God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs to mark seasons, days, and years. And let them be for lights in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky to give light to the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. God saw that it was good. There was evening and there was morning, a fourth day. God said, "Let the waters abound with living creatures. Let birds fly above the earth in the open expanse of the sky." God created the large sea creatures and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarmed after their kind, and every winged bird after its kind, and God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." There was evening and there was morning, a fifth day. God said, "Let the earth produce living creatures after their kind, livestock, creeping things, and animals of the earth after their kind." And it was so. God made the animals of the earth after their kind, and the livestock after their kind, and everything that creeps on the ground after its kind. God saw that it was good. God said, "Let's make man in our image, after our likeness. Let them have domain over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." God created man in his own image. In God's image he created him, male and female he created them. God blessed them. God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." God said, "Behold, I have given you every herb yielding seed, which is on the surface of all the earth, and every tree which bears fruit yielding seed. It will be your food. To every animal of the earth and every bird of the sky, and to everything that creeps on the earth in which there is life, I have given every green herb for food." And it was so. God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. There was evening and there was morning, a sixth day. The heavens, the earth, and all their vast array were finished. On the seventh day God finished his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because he rested in it from all of his work of creation which he had done. And she's going to try and knock my camera over. It'll be great. Okay, this is very distracting to have a cat. This is the literary analysis section for the first creation story in Genesis. I will be referring to Genesis and most of the rest of the Bible as myth, which is a genre of folklore consisting of narratives, meaning songs, stories, poetry, and images that play a fundamental role in a given society. It does not matter for our purposes here of this discussion if the myth is purely fiction or if there are roots in fact. Any story that survives as long as these have deserves the title of mythology. We'll start with literary history. Well, the first 5 books of the Pentateuch are attributed to Moses. This isn't how scholarly analysis shakes out. The writing styles and cultural influences set the various stories too far apart in time to have been written by one author. And Moses is largely regarded to be a fictional patriarch character. The first creation myth in Genesis, from chapter 1 to chapters 2, verse 3, was written by what scholars call the priestly source, and is dated to approximately the 6th century BCE, during the period of the Babylonian exile. This is a younger story than the creation and the fall of man that we'll take a look at next, but it certainly fits the narrative better when it's presented first. Why Genesis 2, 1 through 3 was not included in Genesis 1 is beyond me. Common internet lore has it as something to do with notations, something to do with grammar, or blaming some guy in the Middle Ages. My bet's on the guy in the Middle Ages. It's his fault. We'll just blame him. The scholarly analysis concerning the dates of writing and editing should never invalidate oral tradition. In this story, Elohim, which is the generic Hebrew word for God, which is not used in the World English Bible that we're reading, creates the heavens, the earth, and all living things in 6 days, and then rests on the 7th. The first day he creates light. The second day is the sea and the sky. Day 3 is the land and the plants. Day 4 is the celestial bodies. Day 5 is the fish and the birds. Day 6 is land, animals, and humans. Day 7 is rest and the sacred. The characters who appear in the story are Elohim, or God, and this is the only active character in this entire story. Everybody else is passive. There is the we, us, which is the heavenly host, or the council of gods, depending, and that is mentioned in 126. Then there are the plants, fish, bird, land animals, and humans. Anaphora is the repetition of a word or phrase at the beginning of successive clauses, sentences, or poetic lines. It's a common rhetorical device used for emphasis and to create a rhythmic effect. In Genesis chapters 1 through chapter 2, verse 3, each day follows a similar literary pattern using anaphora. In the introduction, we have "and God said." Then we have a command, "let there be." We have a report, "and it was so." Evaluation, "and God saw that it was good." A time sequence, "and there was evening, and there was morning." What other literary devices can you identify that really stick out to you in this particular story? Next, we have comparative mythologies. And I would like to remind everyone that this is a secular study, which means that we will be looking at other mythologies. Unsurprisingly, the first creation myth, and indeed much of the Bible, was heavily influenced by broader Mesopotamian mythology and ancient Near Eastern cosmology that compare and contrast Genesis chapter 1 to 2, verse 3, with the Enuma Elish, which is the Babylonian creation myth. They are very closely related. They're not exactly the same, but the Israelites took a lot of the Babylonian creation myth and incorporated it into their own mythologies. And these are all the same people groups. If you look at the mythologies from that area and that time, they're so similar, which is not a surprise. In ancient Near Eastern cosmology, the Earth is shaped like a flat disk covered with a hard, transparent dome, which is surrounded by water above and below. And the firmament, or the transparent dome, rests on the mountains at the edges of the earth and has windows that allow the rain in. The sun, moon, and stars travel around the inside of the dome, and the earth is supported by pillars sunk into the waters below. Under the earth, but above the waters of the deep, is Sheol, where the dead go. So compare and contrast Sheol with the myths about Hellenistic Greek, Canaanite, and Egyptian underworlds. You'll see a lot of similarities. You'll see some differences. One of the big differences between those and Sheol is that in Sheol, you basically stop existing, or you sort of become one with the ancestors. They say, gather unto the ancestors, but they don't say that in this story. On a humorous note, I'm desperate to make a cake that looks like the flat earth and then stick a glass cloche over the top of it with the sun, moon, and stars stuck to the inside of the cloche. And the urge may wear off before my birthday, but I don't know. Possum, what are you doing? What is so fascinating in that closet? So now we come to conflicts, contradictions, and controversies. You wouldn't think that 5 minutes of reading could cause this much trouble, but oh boy. The first thing that we have is creation from nothing versus creation from something. Genesis 1:1 is often translated into English as, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is where the idea of creatio ex nihilo, or creation from nothing, comes from. I probably said that wrong. The Hebrew is ambiguous and may be translated in other ways. The NRSV says, in the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, ... And then in the same sentence it mentions darkness, the deep, wind, and waters, which all exist before any action of creation begins. On a personal note, I really do prefer the NRSV, but it's under copyright, so I don't dare use very much of it. The Wycliffe Bible uses stronger phrasing to really nail down the creatio ex nihilo, saying, in the beginning, God made of naught heaven and earth. So, in other words, in modern English, in the beginning, God made out of nothing the heavens and the earth. What you doing, Possum? Meow. Did you get stuck in here? Yeah? This little linguistic quibble in the first sentence of the Bible has caused no end of fights over the centuries. Realistically, it's a typical opening line for any creation story, and they all have their variations. Some start with a void of darkness, some with a primordial ocean or chaos. Some start with a fully formed land above or below, with a god figure magically creating this world, either through dream, an act of will, sex, murder, necessity, and occasionally accidentally. Those are really funny. And of course, there's God themselves. The story never gets into that, though the other myths from that time and place certainly do. On a very humorous note, I've seen young Earth creationists accuse scientists of believing in creatio ex nihilo for the universe, and every scientist has responded with something along the lines of, dude, that's your theory, not mine. And the thing is that this is a story. This is not meant to be taken literally, no matter which translation you prefer. It's just a story. What you need? Hmm? Come on. There you go. Life coming from the earth. This is more of a chapter 1 versus chapter 2 issue, and there's all sorts of rationalizations and apologetics to reconcile the two tales of the creation of humans. The tales have no obligation to agree. They are from two different traditions. Both do agree that living things... Awesome. Both do agree that living things come from the earth, or dust, same, except in chapter 2, when poor Eve gets made from bone, when in chapter 1, the humans rise out of the earth together. The Lilith story fits in here somewhere to help justify the narratives, and I've heard, well, the first group is where all the other people came from, but I don't want to skip ahead, so we'll talk about that next time. Again, not to pick on the young earth creationists here on YouTube, but I've heard some of them say something along the lines of, scientists say people came from rocks, ha ha ha. Except again, no, that's what the Bible literalists say. As a mythological theme, it's fairly common to have humans created from rocks of the earth, clay, dust, or something similar. It makes sense on a basic observational level because when we die, we do turn it back into dirt eventually. And bones can fossilize, which means they can turn to stone, and ancient people would have observed these things. They just explained them in stories. I don't subscribe to people were dumber a long time ago. People are people, okay? And we really haven't changed all that much. We've just gotten a tiny bit better at collective knowledge and technology versus personal knowledge and generalized skills. And folks can be pretty dumb today, despite our best efforts at educating them out of it. Kitty had to go out. Okay. Flat Earth. Oh boy. Oh no, wait. The kinds. Oh boy. So, in this story, all living things come up out of the earth, and they're divided into kinds, which was a decent enough understanding of animal and plant groups before phylogeny, evolution, and genetics. For the vast majority of Christians, this is not a contradiction or a sticking point at all. For a very small subset of believers, it is an issue. My middle school life science teacher was one of them. Will evolution be on the test? Yes. Are you going to teach it to us? No. And he turned off the lights and left the room. And I'm sorry, folks, just like some of my family found out their parents weren't their parents when genetic testing became widely available, not everything that's written in a Bible is literally true. Sometimes it's an allegory. Allegory is a literary term. Flat Earth. As long as we're going there, we might as well go there, right? My kid is endlessly entertained by the Flat Earth folks who subscribe to this model against all evidence to the contrary. People in Greece knew that the world was round around the time the story was written, but the general idea took a while to spread around the globe. Ha ha. By about 400 CE, most people in the Mediterranean and West Asia accepted a spherical Earth. The heliocentric model took a little bit longer to catch on. But seriously, if there's any flat earthers watching this, don't change, because my son gets hours of entertainment from you guys. The world needs your whimsy, okay? For number 5, this is on the Divine Council, because it is mentioned here. And so in 126, God says, "Let us make humankind in our image after our likeness." And the Hebrew does not use us or our in the singular form, like is in the royal we. It uses them in the plural form. So I know that the monotheists will do their best to wiggle out of this one, but the whole biblical story is about how this God and this people group slowly moved from polytheism to monotheism. And eventually they get to monotheism, kind of, but they're not there yet, okay? They're firmly in all the other people of their cultures are. When I say when, I mean when this book was written, okay? This is during the Babylonian exile. We're still very much in a polytheistic culture. So it's cool to see in the story how Yahweh slowly elbows his way to the front of the divine council over time, and how the other gods slowly get demoted to the station of like angels or demons or messengers or fake gods, all lies. And as mythological themes go, this follows the general course of a younger god overtaking the older gods. That's foreshadowing. But that's not this story, not yet. So here, Elohim is just speaking to the other gods on an equal level, though they don't play an active part in this narrative. They don't ever say anything. Number 6 in this is the order of creation between chapter 1 and chapter 2. I'm just going to stick a pin in it and we'll discuss it next time. I'll leave some Q&A questions down below the video in case these are appropriate for older children, middle schoolers, high schoolers, college, people who are just stepping their toes into studying this. So the first one is, how does God make animals and humans in Genesis 1? What were God's reasons for making humans in Genesis 1? Because they're going to be different in 2. What were the animals and people eating in Genesis 1? That one's always fun. Is the story realistic or not? Is it okay if the story is not realistic? Is it okay if the story is just symbolic, or do you need it to be realistic, and why? What other creation stories can you think of? How are they different, and how are they the same? Would society and or Christianity be different if only the first creation story existed? Would we have the rest of the Bible, or would the story just end there? And I want you to think about this in a literary sense, because for when we get to the creation and fall of man in the next section, there's all sorts of literary plot hooks and devices that happen. Are those here in this story, or is this sort of encapsulated in its own little bubble? That's all I have for you today, so thank you so much for joining me. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I will try to post a video every single week. I can't guarantee it. I have a farm and a family and like craziness.